you doing?
Not too bad, you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad.
Yeah, so 2020 should have been a huge year for you guys, your 25th
Yeah.
anniversary and all of that. So how much of a blow has this year been on your plans?
I mean, it's been a massive blow, not just for us, but every band and the music industry in general, I guess.
Yeah.
Obviously, it was going to be a special year for us with that 25-year anniversary looming. But we've had to adapt, and to do that, we put together a digital live album which came out via our Bandcamp a while back, and that's a nice little stopgap really to make up for the lost shows this summer. A lot of festivals have gone out the window, and as sad as that is, there's nothing that can be done about it. So you just have to sort of pick yourself up and get on with things. Sadly, I think it's going to be really tough for a lot of bands to survive. Because there's overheads involved with bands that do this on a kind of semi-professional level.
Yeah.
But with ourselves, we're in a position where we can maintain what we do, and that live album has helped bring in the revenue to cover our sort of studio rental costs and equipment storage and everything else that goes with it. So it's not been ideal, but everything that we had planned for 2020, we're pretty much reconfirming for 2021. So, it's going to be a 26-year anniversary, I suppose.
And you were due to play the main stage of Bloodstock, and it's their 20th anniversary, same as your 25th. Yeah. So, did you have anything special planned for Bloodstock?
I think, obviously we're going to pay a lot of attention to the set list. We always try and put a bit more into the production these days than we had in the past. It used to just be the four of us wander on stage and sort of go for it. But these days we realise that, the paying public want something a bit extra, so we've put a bit more thought into the light show and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And the set at Bloodstock was going to be kind of a special one for us, because with it being an anniversary, we wanted to make sure that we played material from across our whole career. With 9 studio albums under our belts now, it makes it a little bit difficult. But that was one of the sort of most hurtful cancellations of the summer for us.
Yeah.
Bloodstock's got a sort of special place in our hearts, having played that first ever one 20 years ago, and then sort of we did the Sophie Lancaster stage in 2012 and recorded our live album and DVD there.
Yeah.
2015 we went back and played the main stage for the first time, and this year was supposed to be very special, sort of two anniversaries to celebrate, and also being on there alongside bands that inspired us and have been massive influences like Diamond Head, Saxon, Judas Priest.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a homecoming for British metal. So luckily, hopefully we can do it all again next year. And Bloodstock's one of those festivals that will survive. It's got a lot of support. It's really well organised, family-run enterprise, and I think they're going about things really well. And next year they've added the extra day, so we just look forward to being able to get together in a fiddle with all our friends from over the years and do it all again.
Absolutely. So you mentioned playing the very first Bloodstock 20 years ago. So do you have any memories of that first edition of the festival?
The only thing that really sticks in my mind is the fact that we got banned from Bloodstock after it, because I'm not sure it was particularly us, but a few people we knew played up in the dressing room afterwards and caused a little bit of a mess. Not saying no names, but some of the other bands on the bill were partying with us and got a little bit out of hand. So, there was a little bit of not fallout, but a little bit of and what's the word? Animosity towards us from Bloodstock in the early days, and it wasn't necessarily our fault, but it was understandable. But that all got resolved over the course of time, and when they had us back in 2012, it was to headline the Sophie stage. So it was everything's fine now.
Cool.
But I mean, it was different back then. Obviously, the first ever one was indoors at the Assembly Hall in Derby, so it weren't at the same location they've got now at Carlton Hall. But I remember it being a great day. It was like Saxon, Glenn Hughes. I can't even remember the full lineup, but it was a really great experience. the bits that I do remember.
So looking back at the beginnings of the band, then when you formed as Our Haunted Kingdom back in '95, did you ever envisage your career lasting this long?
Not at all. No, I mean, when we started the band back then, it was just a way of relieving the boredom. There was four of us sitting around out of work, sharing a mutual sort of love of the same music, all heavily into, Sabbath, Motorhead, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, and decided that, Joe and Pete were kind of, adept at playing the guitar, but Martin and I had never been involved in bands before. Martin chose to play the bass, bought himself a bass, and taught himself from scratch, basically.
Yeah.
And it kind of snowballed. As soon as we got to a position where we'd written a few songs, we did a few shows locally, even like just jam nights at the local blues club where you get up and play 3 songs. It was kind of bizarre because we went up there and did like Jimi Hendrix cover and a death metal song that we'd written for the first Our Haunted Kingdom demo, and the faces on the people in the pub that night were amazing. But yeah, we didn't expect it to ever last as long as it has. We thought it'd be great to record a demo, maybe do a few local shows, but we were fortunate. After the initial Our Haunted Kingdom period, we kind of found our niche with what was then considered like the stoner rock world, and that was a burgeoning scene around '95, especially in this country, because we were getting the likes of Caius and Fu Manchu and Monster Magnet and all those from America, and it really tied in with the whole Sabbath thing that was happening here with bands like Cathedral and Electric Wizard and Acrimony.
Yeah.
So we got in with the right crowd, really. We did a few shows in London with bands like Mourn, and then Lee Dorian from Cathedral, who obviously ran Rise Above Records, came to check us out one night at a show we did with Electric Wizard.
Yeah.
He was really blown away by what we'd done that night, and he offered us a deal on the spot. So having his sort of backing and support was a real big step up for us, and it gave us a real sort of foothold on the ladder to what led us to a career. And we're forever grateful to Lee for what he did, not only sort of putting our records out, but also Cathedral taking us out on tour in those early days. And that's where it all started, really. It gave us a sort of foot in the door, and we sort of grasped the opportunity, never looked back. And here we are 25 years later, as I say, with 9 studio albums under our belt, and we still enjoy what we do. We realise how lucky we are, what a privileged position it is to be in a band and get paid to go all over the world, to get free beer, hang out with your mates, and watch bands at festivals that you've loved for years. So it's a nice position to be in.
Yeah. So back in the late '90s, for me as a young impressionable teen, you were bringing something new to the table. Did you ever see yourselves as heading up like a second new wave of British heavy metal?
Not really. I don't think you do. When you're sort of inside that bubble, you don't sort of give yourself the credit that you probably deserve at the time. And to us, we were just doing what we enjoyed. In those early days, then the mid to late 90s, we got a lot of stick and were accused of being a Black Sabbath rip-off, a Cathedral rip-off, and all this sort of thing. And we never wanted to be pigeonholed as a stoner rock band, so we tried to incorporate as many of our own personal influences into our sound as possible. And I think by doing that and adding a little bit of punk rock, a little bit of doom metal, a little bit of southern rock, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, it kind of created something quite unique to Orange Goblin. And I think because, we got shit reviews in the early days, the likes of Kerrang slated us and thought it was all a bit of a joke, especially with a name like Orange Goblin. But the fact that we persevered and we stuck with it and, consistently made decent albums, I think the UK press kind of sat up and thought, actually, these guys ain't bad. It's not the joker we thought it was. And they're here to persevere. So, the longevity of the band helped build that kind of status as a respectable act. And, looking at it now, you see that we're considered, as you say, one of the bands that spearheaded like a new wave of British heavy metal. And we're worthy of slots on main stages of Bloodstock alongside the likes of Saxon and Judas Priest. It's a real honour and it's real humbling sort of experience for all of us.
Yeah, yeah. So I think the first time I got to see you was '98 at JB's in Dudley, which was probably supporting Cathedral, to be fair. And then later that year, you got the tour supporting Queens of the Stone Age. What were those early tours like for you as a band?
They were carnage, absolute carnage. I mean, we were young and impressionable, and we thought the idea of going on tour was to have as much fun and cause as much mischief as we possibly could. There wasn't an ounce of professionalism within the band at all. It was just sort of drink and consume as much sort of bad stuff as we possibly could. So looking back at it, we've probably made a few mistakes and upset the wrong people in those early days. But you learn from those mistakes and you start to sort of mature a bit and realise that when people are paying money to come see the band, you have to have a sort of degree of professionalism. The Queens of the Stone Age tour in particular, I mean, we didn't really give it any thought at the time. We were just doing it because we were huge fans of Virus, and this was the new band of Josh and Nick Oliveri and Alfredo. So just to be on that and playing alongside those guys every night was a massive honour. And no one knew at the time sort of who they were. No one knew what they was going to go on to achieve. So, I mean, it was tiny little venues. I think you mentioned the Varsity in Wolverhampton and places like that, which is crazy now when you think of what Queens of the Stone Age have gone on to. But they were a great learning curve for us as a young band and held us in good stead. We forged like lifelong friendships with those sort of people, and it gave us an insight as to how to be more professional on the road and what you need to do if you want to survive. And I mean, if we'd carried on the way we was going in them early days, we'd all be dead now, let alone sort of doing the band after 25 years.
And a couple of years later, as well as supporting Queens of Stone Age, you were support with United, weren't you, with John Garcia? So you're racking up Caius members slowly on your tours.
Yeah, that's right, because Scott Reeder was playing bass for them at the time.
He was,
as well. So, I mean, that's how we formed that friendship with Scott and John, who obviously we got involved. Scott produced the Coup de Grace album in 2000, or was it 2002? I can't remember. But, and then, John Garcia came over and done vocals on that as well. And, you know, we did a lot of great tours. There was a lot of shows with the likes of Fu Manchu, there were shows with Danzig, there were shows with Monster Magnet. We did like arena tours supporting Alice Cooper and Dio. And it was just a really exciting, eye-opening time. So those sort of things helped sort of forge who we were as a band. That's when you establish relationships with sort of road crew and merchandise people and lighting directors and all those people that we still work with now. So.
Yeah. So how do you think the exposure of tours like the Queens of Stone Age one and the United and the Alice Coopers and Dios that you mentioned, how do you think the exposure you got on those tours helped you?
Oh, I mean, obviously that's what it's all about. That's the reason we did those tours, was to get that exposure. I mean, a band like us, who we used to play in sort of 250, 300 capacity venues in Camden, to all of a sudden being out there on the road to world-renowned bands and artists playing to 12,000 people a night, it can't do you any harm at all, can it? So, you know, we always used to look at it as like, you know, we appreciate that the venue isn't going to be full by the time we hit the stage, but if we can play to sort of 10% of each venue each night and win over 10% of them people, then, you know, it's still, you know, a building process. And you know, when you're seen on those stages, it makes everyone else in the industry sit up and take notice. And I think it really worked for us doing those tours so early on.
Yeah, absolutely. And then in '98, you got on the Krang, Radio Krang Volume 7 alongside Sepultura, Rob Zombie, System of a Down, Korn and Monster Magnet. So that must have been another big boost for you.
Yeah, I mean, that was around the time where, I think that must have been around the time of the Big Black album, which was when things did start to sort of take on a more professional kind of aspect, and the UK press kind of started to embrace us, hence Kerrang putting us on their compilations, and we also did them for Metal Hammer and Terrorizer and all the other UK rock press at the time. And, you know, again, that can't do your band anything but good. So it was kind of, you know, like beyond our wildest dreams that we'd be on compilations alongside the likes of Sepultura, who we worshipped as kids. So, you know, all those sort of things, they're incredible when you look back at it. But now you just see it as sort of part and parcel of the whole process and leading us to where we are now.
Yeah. So you'll have been asked this 1,000 times before, so I'm apologising in advance. But
that's all right.
When Pete left in 2004,
yeah.
how did the rest of you go about making a decision of whether you replaced him or not?
Well, there wasn't a decision to make, really. Pete had sort of had enough of doing the band after we completed our first ever North American tour in 2002. We spent 38 days in this tiny little van, done 37 shows right across North America with Alabama Thunder Pussy supporting us. And that was grueling, like seriously grueling. There was no hotels, it was sleeping in the van, arrive at a venue, get in, do a show, load the van up, and then do another sort of 10 to 15 hour drive to the next city for the next show. And that did take its toll on all of us, but Pete especially, because he weren't sort of determined to make it a career. He was an artist, and he was a very good artist that wanted to concentrate on his creative side in that field. So I think the last show he was supposed to do with us was going to be the Bulldog Bash show.
Yeah.
But for some reason that morning he couldn't make it. He just phoned up and said, "Look, I'm not going to be able to make the show today, guys." And it kind of left us in the lurch. We didn't have time to sort of think about getting a replacement. So we did that show as a 4-piece. And when we came on stage, everyone said, "That sounded incredible. You don't really need to find another guitarist." And that was it. Our mind was made up for us. And, you know, as I say, the two main sort of influences throughout our career have been Black Sabbath and Motorhead. And the classic eras of both of those bands have only needed one guitar. You had Tony Iommi and Fast Eddie Clarke. And that was kind of like decision made, really. So...
Yeah, fair enough. So, as your career has progressed, 25 years is a long time, a lot of music, a lot of tours. What have been your highlights and your lowlights?
Well, Pete leaving was probably the lowest because, you know, it kind of did throw a little bit of uncertainty around things, but not for long. As I say, once we did that show and everyone said that the 4-piece sounded good, then, you know, it kind of alleviated any fears we had there. The high points, there's been so many. It's like, you know, where do you start with a 25-year career? It's just, you know, seeing your first album in the show, being in the recording studio like a kid in a sweet shop. It's you know, a great feeling knowing you've got the backing of a guy like Lee Dorian. So signing that contract, recording the first album, then seeing it in the shop, then going on tour for the first time, that's great. And then, you know, I mean, going to Japan was like a dream come true. Playing over there, we got treated like the Beatles in Japan for the time we went. So that was an incredible experience. And then it's just as things sort of progress, things get better and better. You know, that first North American tour, then, you know, doing European tours, Porto Cathedral, being on a night liner for the first time and feeling like a rock star. And then, you know, you go to doing Soundwave Festival across Australia, playing these huge stages alongside the likes of Slayer and Metallica and Machine Head and all these sort of household names.
Yeah.
And getting out backstage is a great feeling. Personally, for me, some of my favourite highlights were playing Hellfest 5 times. Is it 5 times? 4 times or so? Whatever. It's festivals like Wacken Open Air, Sweden Rock, Resurrection Fest, playing the main stage at Download UK, playing main stage at Bloodstock, headlining the Sophie stage at Bloodstock. There's so many. I mean, a couple of years ago, we got invited by Sharon Osbourne to go and open the main stage at Ozfest in California, which was quite an honour, as we was the only British band on the bill that day. So there's been a lot of really sort of amazing peaks in this band throughout 25. And that's why we don't take it for granted. We're not arrogant about it. We don't kind of brag about these things because we're just sort of grateful that they've happened to us, and we know we've worked hard, we've persevered, so you know they're all well deserved as well.
Yeah, fair enough. You've all got day jobs as well, so how hard is it fitting in being in one of the biggest heavy bands from the UK alongside everyday life?
It can be really difficult. I mean, the amount of tours we've had to turn down in the past due to having day jobs that wouldn't allow us the time off and things like that, it's unbelievable. I mean, the only time that we did give up the day jobs was just after Eulogy for the Damned came out in 2012, and then we kind of had a go at doing it professionally in 13 and 14, and despite all the hard work, we spent like 8 months a year away from home, did 161 shows in 2013, went all over the world, and it was fun. It was hard work. It was fun, but unfortunately, the style of music we do isn't, commercially accessible. It isn't, we're not going to be the next Iron Maiden. We're not Metallica, and unfortunately, it didn't quite pay the bills for us. So we had to sort of swallow the pill and say, look, let's go back to work and keep doing it as a hobby. But that's fine. We're not jaded by it. We had a go, and I think we'd have regretted it more if we'd never sort of taken that step and given it a chance. So, it's better to have tried and failed than to have not tried at all. So, but that said, we're still here. We still enjoy it.
Yeah. So, you yourself, you work in the industry. You've seen a lot of young bands come and go. Is there anyone on the scene at the moment that you see as the rightful heir to Orange Goblin?
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of great bands in the UK at the moment. Bands like King Creature, Video Nasties, Green Lung, Boss Kelloid. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on in the UK right now, and it's a very burgeoning scene. I think that's always been the case in this country. Even if you go back to the 60s, the amount of quality bands that have come from this small island, it's an incredible output, and which is why it's a shame now when we're in these times where coronavirus is kind of decimating the music industry. The government don't put any sort of support into the arts and the music scene in this country. And you consider, this is the same place that gave the world the likes of the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, The Who, Black Sabbath. It's an endless stream of quality music over the years, and we don't get no support here yet.
Yeah.
At the same time, I think that's why this country is so prolific with good music, because it is kind of frowned upon, and there's still that frustration, and all good art is born of frustration and suffering, and that's essential to everything, not just music. Whether you're a painter, whether you're a sculptor, whether you're a writer, you have to experience the lows to put that on your canvas, and this country has always done that. So I think with the animosity there is towards the current government, I think this country is going to have a great music scene for a long time to come.
Punk all over again.
Yeah.
So for a number of years, I've personally been saying that Desert Storm are slowly building themselves up to be the next Orange Goblin. They've toured with you before.
I'll apologise to Ryan and Elliot, the boys. I should have given them a mention there, because they are one of the sort of cream of the crop of the new bands coming out of the UK as well.
Yeah. So what do you think? You've toured with them. What do you think of them as an outfit?
I mean, it's been amazing to see how their careers progressed, because when we first come across them, we thought it was nothing but like a Clutch clone. But they've grown and they've developed as a band, and they've added so much more, so many more textures to their songwriting and their material. And new album Omens is a real indication of that. It's really strong from start to finish, and they're lovely guys. They're passionate about what they do. So I mean, if any success is due to them, it's really well deserved.
Yeah. I interviewed him a couple of weeks ago, and I said about Omens, and I said, I've always been saying you're the next Orange Goblin, and with Omens, you're not the next Orange Goblin anymore. But because they've gone heavier and darker, haven't they?
When there's any sort of Black Sabbath influence or just heavy rock influence, there's always going to be comparisons to any band, and I can see why Desert Storm would have been compared to ourselves. As a lot of bands have, but they have sort of started to forge their own path now, which is great. Yeah.
So as we wind down now, so 2020 is pretty much decimated. Hopefully you'll tour in December. But what does 2021 hold for Orange Goblin?
As I say, we've had to reschedule most of the festivals that we had planned, but there's still a chance we might have to reschedule the December tour, but we're keeping our fingers crossed that we'll be back to some sort of normality by then. So that can go ahead. And then who knows? It's just filling up the calendar. There's talk of us starting to write new material. I don't think we're sort of done with writing and recording. It'd be a shame if the Wolf Bites Pack turned out to be the last album, because I think we've still got a lot more to give. And Chris and Joe are writing ideas. I've got lyrical content that could be used. So, yeah, there's definitely, a possible new album in 2021 as well.
Yeah. So that's all good. So thank you for talking to us, and hopefully we'll catch up with you in December.
Yes, no problem at all, Tim. You enjoy the rest of your day.
And you. Cheers, Ben.
All right. Cheers, mate. Take care. Bye-bye.
See ya.